In the quiet, climate-controlled halls of the Kestrel Wing University Archive, history is not a story, it is a physical thing. It is the brittle, acidic smell of aging paper, the heft of a cloth-bound ledger, the ghostly silver nitrate bloom on a glass plate negative. For Dr. Alistair Finch, this was a language he understood better than any spoken tongue. His life was a meticulous dialogue with the dead, a painstaking effort to reconstruct past worlds from the artifacts they left behind. When the university acquired the complete, unredacted archives of Section 7, a forgotten Allied intelligence unit from the Second World War, it was the professional equivalent of discovering a pharaoh's tomb. The official story was simple. Section 7 was a signals and reconnaissance group, one of many such units operating in France after the Normandy landings. Their work was vital but, by the standards of history, mundane. The archive promised to fill a small, unremarkable gap in the grand tapestry of the war. The initial cataloguing was a slow, deliberate process that spanned months. Alistair worked his way through crates of radio intercept logs, aerial reconnaissance photos, and supply requisitions, each document a small, dry piece of a larger puzzle. It was during the digitization phase, a process of creating high-resolution scans for preservation and study, that he first saw the face of Corporal Thomas Ashworth. The photograph was in a box of miscellaneous personnel shots, most of them stiff, formal portraits. But this one was different. It was taken outdoors, in the hazy, sun-drenched light of a European summer. A young soldier, impossibly handsome and radiating a guileless vitality, stands in what appears to be a country lane. He is smiling. It is not a practiced, camera-ready smile. It is a genuine, luminous expression of joy, the kind of smile that seems to suggest a profound confidence in the future. The image was so poignant, so full of life amidst the bureaucratic debris of war, that Alistair decided it would be the centerpiece of the digital collection. He places the 35mm negative into the scanner's holder, his movements precise and practiced. The machine whirs, and a high-resolution image materializes on his monitor, a ghost of light and shadow resurrected in pixels. He zooms in, wanting to appreciate the photographic detail, the texture of the soldier's wool uniform, the specific insignia on his collar, the stray lock of hair falling across his forehead. His focus drifts to the background, a soft, out-of-focus tapestry of green foliage and golden fields. And then he sees it. It is a subtle thing, almost certainly a trick of the light, a figment of the film grain. Behind the smiling soldier, deep in the soft-focus background, stands a shape. It has the general silhouette of a person, draped in what looks like rustic, loose-fitting clothing. But it is wrong. The proportions are distorted, elongated in a way that defies the gentle perspective of the lens. One arm seems to hang too low, too long, its length unnatural. The figure's posture is stiff, posed, as if it were a scarecrow. Yet, no scarecrow Alistair had ever seen possess such a palpable sense of attention. Even as a blur, it seemed to be watching, its faceless gaze fixed upon the smiling soldier. Alistair leans closer to the screen, his breath fogging a small patch on the cold glass. The sense of poignant nostalgia the photo had evoked moments before curdles into a quiet, cold unease. The anomaly became an itch in his professional mind. He sent the raw scan to Clara Thorne in the university's forensic imaging department, a woman whose relationship with pixels was as intimate as his was with paper. He gave her no context, simply asking if she could clarify a heavily blurred figure in the background of an old photograph. The email came back a day later. Alistair, it read, the resolution is remarkable for the era. The lens was a high-quality German make, probably captured equipment. The depth of field is incredibly shallow, meaning the photographer intentionally focused tightly on the soldier. Anything in the background would be soup. I've run it through every deblurring and enhancement algorithm we have. The results are inconclusive. It's not a film defect, it's an object and it's roughly human-shaped. But the light refracts from its surface in a strange way. And look at this. Attached was an amplified image. The figure was still a frustrating enigma, but the enhancement revealed a detail that had been invisible. Around the figure's base, the wheat stalks were not bent or trampled, as they would be if someone were standing there. They seemed to be pulled away, retracted into the soil, leaving a small, perfectly neat circle of bare earth. This was no longer a photographic artifact, it was an impossibility. Alistair turns back to the physical archive. He needs a name. The box was labelled Personnel, Normandy, Summer 44. Using the insignia he had noted from the photo, a small, Embroidered raven holding a key cross-references it with the Section 7 unit rosters. It takes him 2 days of painstaking work, comparing grainy portraits to the smiling man in the field. He finds him. Corporal Thomas Ashworth, service number 17-17-10-4-9-8. Alistair pulls Ashworth's file. It is unnervingly thin, a standard enlistment form, a commendation for marksmanship, and a deployment order to Section 7 in July of 1944. And then, nothing. The paper trail simply ends. There is no transfer order, no casualty report, no mention in the lists of prisoners of war, no honorable discharge. According to the United States Army, in August of 1944, Corporal Thomas Ashworth ceased to exist. Alistair feels a chill that has nothing to do with the archive's regulated temperature. He is holding the records of a man who was meticulously documented until the very moment he was sent to stand in a sunny field, and who then evaporated from the historical record. The investigation has become an obsession. Alistair abandons the general cataloguing project and focuses solely on the week Ashworth disappeared. He delves into the operational logs of Section 7, typed on flimsy, onion skin paper. The entries for late July are standard military fare. Intercepted transmission Reitwand Panzer movements. Reconnaissance flight confirms bridge integrity at Pont l'Evêque. Then, in the first week of August, the language changes. It becomes sparse, coded. There are repeated references to a village named Sainte-Mère-de-Verge, a place that does not appear on any military map of the era. He finds notations about mitigating local superstition and assessing a non-hostile civilian asset. Then he finds the code phrase, repeated over 3 consecutive days. The harvester is in the fields. The words are typed with the same dispassionate efficiency as reports on troop movements, but they feel alien, intrusive. In another box, one filled with uncatalogued landscape photographs, he finds a stark image of a vast, empty wheat field under a slate-grey sky. The photo is titled Sainte-Mère-de-Verge, Observation Point B. Alistair scans it at maximum resolution. There, at the far edge of the field, almost lost against a line of dark trees, is the figure. It is standing perfectly still, a dark sliver of wrongness against the horizon. It is facing the camera. He digs further, his search becoming more frantic. He finds a supply requisition form, dated August 4th, 1944. The request is for a set of specialized manacles, non-standard design, and 12 high-tensile steel ground stakes. The authorization is signed by the commander of Section 7. In the field for purpose of requisition, a single, chilling phrase is typed. Containment of anomalous pastoral phenomenon. The line between academic inquiry and personal dread had blurred, then vanished. Alistair begins to have dreams, a recurring tableau of suffocating detail. He is standing in a field of wheat, the sun hot on his neck. The air is thick, silent. There is no birdsong, no wind, only the oppressive weight of a great, listening quiet. He can hear a sound, a dry, whispering rustle, like dead leaves being dragged over stone. He feels a primal, inescapable certainty that he is being watched by something that does not have eyes. He wakes up with a jolt, his heart hammering against his ribs, the image of Thomas Ashworth's smile seared into his mind. But in the dream, the smile is not joyful. It is a rictus of terror, a mask stretched thin over screaming bone. His waking hours become just as unsettled. Working late one night, alone in the echoing silence of the archive, he hears a noise. It is a faint, rhythmic scratching coming from the direction of the sealed, climate-controlled vault where the most sensitive Section 7 materials are stored. He tells himself it is the building's ancient HVAC system, the settling of a century-old foundation, but he cannot shake the feeling that he is no longer alone in the archive. The rows of grey document boxes suddenly feel like tombs, and the silence feels like a held breath. Alistair realized the official archive was a lie, not by what it contained, but by what it omitted. The records were too clean, Ashworth's disappearance too complete. It was a deliberate, surgical excision. This thought propels him to the archive's acquisition manifest, the master list of every crate received from the military depot. He compares the manifest, line by line, against his own catalogue. He finds it on page 12. Crate 7B, described on the military manifest as Personal Effects, CPL, Ashworth, T. That crate was never logged into the Kestrel Wing system. It was never officially received. It was missing. A frantic energy overtakes him. He calls the head archivist, a formidable woman named Eleanor Vance, and explains his discovery. Together, they descend into the sub-basement, a dusty labyrinth of forgotten university property and decommissioned equipment. In a dark corner, behind a stack of obsolete computer terminals, they find it. A small, simple wooden crate stenciled with the designation 7B. The wood is dry, the nails rusted. With a crowbar, Alistair prees open the lid. Inside, nestled in yellowed excelsior, is a singular object, a small, leather-bound journal. He takes it back to his office, the old leather cool and smooth beneath his trembling fingers. He opens it. The handwriting is a neat, youthful cursive. August Honest 1944, the first entry reads, "Arrived in France. The country is beautiful, but the fighting is never far. I pray I do my part." The early entries are full of a boy's earnest patriotism. Then, the tone changes. He describes his assignment to Section 7 and slowly, horrifyingly, reveals their true purpose. They were not a signals unit. They were what the military called an unexplained phenomena assessment group. They were ghost hunters, armed with government funding and military-grade weaponry. Ashworth's journal details their arrival at the village of Sainte-Mère-de-Verger. He writes of the terrified locals and their stories of the moissonneur silencieux, the silent harvester. It was an entity, they said, that appeared in the fields only during the peak of the harvest. It looked like a man in old farmer's clothes, but it did not walk. It drifted over the ground, silent as death, and it took people. It did not kill them, not there. It simply harvested them from the fields, and they were never seen again. Section 7 was not there to destroy it. They were there to study it, to capture it. The photograph of the smiling soldier was not a candid shot. It was bait. The journal describes the plan in chilling detail. The entity, according to local legend, was drawn to life, to vitality, but repelled by fear. Section 7 needed a lure. They needed a soldier who could project an aura of pure, untainted confidence. They chose Thomas Ashworth. Alistair's hands are shaking as he reads the final entry. The handwriting is a panicked, jagged scrawl, the pencil lead dug deep into the paper. August 8th. They're putting me in the field now. The captain set up the camera on a tripod, said to keep smiling, no matter what I see or hear. He said its interest wanes if it senses fear. I can see something at the edge of the woods, a shape. It isn't walking, it's pulling itself through the wheat. The stalks don't break, they just move aside. Oh God. It's looking at me. It's smiling back. The words hang in the silent air of Alistair's office. The clinical detachment of the historian is shattered, replaced by a raw, human horror. Section 7 had not just investigated the phenomenon, they had fed it one of their own men, documenting the sacrifice on film for later analysis. Alistair pulls the high-resolution scan of the photograph back up on his monitor, his heart a cold stone in his chest. With the journal's text as his guide, he looks again at the figure in the background. It is not a blur from a shallow depth of field, it is a motion blur. He sees it now with sickening clarity. The entity was moving, gliding rapidly towards Ashworth even as the shutter clicked. The face is not a face. It is a crude mask of burlap or sacking, stretched tight over something angular beneath, with a wide, stitched-on grin that mimics human joy. The long arm is not an arm at all. It is a harvesting tool, a long, curved scythe, not of metal, but of a dark, chitinous material that seems to drink the light. The smiling soldier in the foreground and the smiling horror in the background bound together in a single, terrible moment. A sharp, biting cold floods the office, raising goosebumps on Alistair's arms. The desk lamp flickers once, twice, and then steadies. He looks at the monitor. The image of Corporal Thomas Ashworth is still there, but it has changed. Alistair knows it is impossible, a trick of his frayed nerves, a waking nightmare brought on by the story he has just unearthed. Yet the evidence is right before him. He zooms in on the soldier's face. The smile is still fixed on his lips, a testament to his terrifying discipline. But his eyes, dear God, his eyes. The light in them is gone. They are now wide, staring pools of black, reflecting a terror so absolute, so final, it feels like a physical blow. And the figure behind him is closer. It is no longer a distorted shape in the background. It has moved. It is now just a few feet behind Ashworth's shoulder, rendered in appalling detail. The stitched grin on its sackcloth face seems wider, more malevolent. The scythe is raised, poised to strike. The photograph is no longer a static image from the past. It is a window into a moment that is still happening, an eternal, looping sacrifice, and he is watching its final, awful second unfold. The official inquiry concluded that Section 7 was a rogue unit whose commander engaged in highly unorthodox psychological experiments using local folklore to induce extreme stress in his men. The entity was officially recorded as a product of mass hysteria and combat fatigue, a folie, a plus years, amplified by the pressures of war. The case of Corporal Thomas Ashworth was closed, his files stamped "Lost in Action, Presumed Deceased." The journal was sealed, designated top secret, and buried in a vault from which it would never again emerge. The photograph and all copies were removed from the Kestrel Wing archive. The horror was contained, explained, and filed away. Alistair Finch remained at the university, a respected archivist known for his meticulous, if somewhat grim, demeanor. He no longer looks at old photographs. He cannot. The joy and life they once represented have been replaced by a gnawing question of what might be lurking, out of focus, in the background. He keeps a single forbidden print of Corporal Ashworth locked in a drawer in his desk. He never looks at it, but he knows it is there. He knows what he saw on his screen that night. He knows the image changed. Sometimes, when he works late and the building falls into its deep, nocturnal silence, he hears it. A faint, dry, dragging sound, like leaves skittering across pavement on a windless night. It seems to come from the deepest part of the archive. The file is closed, the story is buried, but Alistair knows that the fields are still there, the harvest always returns, and some things, once found, refuse to be forgotten.